Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
You're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Tonight, the Reaper must claim another damned soul.
Joe Giammatteo.
Jannetty was also a former Intercontinental Champion, too. Let's not forget.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one pay-per-view at a time. That's right, folks. This is going to be a special pay-per-view episode, and as such, pay-per-view rules are in effect. For examples of those rules, go back and check out any one of the many pay-per-view episodes we have in our archives. Suffice it to say, Joe will be hitting us with Dave Meltzer's star ratings on these matches after we give our own. So, without further ado, in this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about SummerSlam 1996. SummerSlam 96 aired on August 18th, 1996, and was recorded at the Gund Arena in Cleveland, Ohio, and features Vince McMahon, Jim Ross, and Mr. Perfect on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. The monsters wear many masks in our world. This was a whole just awesome video vignette opening thing. The opening video montage of this pay-per-view was really well written and really well presented. It gave us eloquent summaries of the battles to come within this pay-per-view. And I tell you what, this really raised the bar of expectation for me going into this. This was filmed at the new Gund Arena of Cleveland, which was good to see, even though the Gund wouldn't get really broken in properly until we visited it in 2001. Vince called Jim Ross JR in his introductions. I think that was the first time we've heard that. But time is of the essence here as we go into our first match of the night. Owen Hart defeats Savio Vega by submission in 13 minutes and 23 seconds. Speaking of setting the bar high, I had pretty big, maybe even unfair expectations for this match, given who was working it. I loved Owen Hart beating up the anti-Owen signs in the crowd on his way down. And also commentary noting how long it's taking for Owen Hart's wrist to heal. There was a good amount of energy in the crowd, and I had to think that this was a great choice as an opening match. But I was somewhat nervous at the start, given how much focus was being put on that cast. I was slightly pissed at the split screen to show Vader pumping iron in the back. Even though that was a nice little scene, it's just there was good stuff going on in the ring that I didn't want to be distracted from. I loved Owen desperately trying to get at the ropes while he was being held in a hold. I loved the armbar takedown from Owen onto Savio. I loved the slapping from both competitors while Savio was tied up in the ropes. I was surprised to be interested in Clarence Mason coming down the entryway to watch the match. Usually that kind of distraction just feels cheap. But in this case, I immediately got the feeling that Mason was scouting for new talent or just there to evaluate some wrestlers, and that made me get a little more excited for the future. Thank goodness we got a slow-mo view of Owen's enziguri. It just added to how great it looked. Savio's enziguri reversal in the corner shortly after that looked great too. Something that was not fun was Vince McMahon calling every fucking 2 count as a victory. And there were a lot of them here, not just this match.
He got him!
Yes, he got him. No, he didn't.
He did it on a 1 count at one point, too.
Now. Owen's missile dropkick from the top turnbuckle had some great height to it. It looked fantastic. But the ref not seeing Owen struggling to put the cast back on after taking it off and hitting Savio with it was fucking ridiculous. This is what gets Owen the win. And before Owen's victory music is done playing, Justin Hawk Bradshaw is here out of nowhere, and he's yelling at Vince on commentary. It was impossible for me to hear or understand all of it, but I think I heard enough to suggest that Bradshaw doesn't like Savio Vega for some reason. That got confirmed when Bradshaw cheap-shotted both Savio and the fucking referee carrying Savio up the entryway. And then JR does inform us that this has to do with Bradshaw and some other guy losing in a tag match over the weekend to Savio and Freddie Joe Floyd. Because that's enough to really wound somebody's pride. I think this match was handicapped by the wrist cast angle. For a split second, I thought that maybe this would set up a feud between Owen and Savio, but that doesn't look likely. Overall, this was a decent match between two really skilled workers, but I do think that the cast angle lowered what could have been a fantastic opener if it had just been kept to straight high-energy wrestling. I went with 2 stars here. Joseph, please, what did you think?
I had a lot of mixed feelings going into this because Savio just got buried 6 days ago. So
yeah.
Why do I care about this? Was my immediate thought. But then I thought, all right, boys, let's go. Let's give us a good match here to start out this show. And they did okay. I don't think they had a bad match, but I do agree with you, Bartlett, with the arm cast. There was just too much focus placed on that. I expected more from them with their athleticism between the two of these guys, but they really seemed to be more focused on the cast for some reason. The referee was right fucking there. I don't know if that was just bad positioning or what, but it just looked ridiculous. There was a lot that I didn't like about this, but at the same time, I didn't hate the match. I thought they had a pretty good match, all things considered, and I also gave it 2 stars.
Yeah, I think we're going to be all in agreement here for the most part. I loved Owen playing up the injury, the way he's shaking the arm when he's holding the Slammy Award, like that was hurting his arm. But then after that, they just spent way too much time on the arm with commentary asking about it. Oh, does it still hurt him? How long's it been on there? And they just keep it going a little bit too long. Once it gets started, as expected, these two guys, they could work with each other. The main problem is that there was zero buildup for this. And because of it, it kind of just felt like a Raw match. We have nothing going into this to build it up. And I thought it was a little bit odd that later on, we do more to build up a post SummerSlam match, this one with Bradshaw, than we did for this SummerSlam match. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know if they just felt like they owed these two guys a SummerSlam paycheck match. We don't have anything on the card for them, so let's just have them fight each other as the first match. But after Savio's job that he had to do last week, I'm glad he got this nice paycheck. But unfortunately, that kind of took away from the match and the shitty ending. Nothing about the two wrestlers really brought this match down. It was all of the other things. And just like you two, I went with a 2-star, but not because of their wrestling in the ring.
That's a great point about this being more like a Raw match. Joe, what'd Meltzer have to say about it?
Dave Meltzer gave this 2.5 stars. He said, not a bad match, but disappointing considering the talent involved. Ryan, now that you say that, I wonder if this was maybe an emergency last-minute booking because of that Ahmed Johnson injury.
That could be too, yeah.
But I didn't read anything about that. I don't know.
There was no build. I mean, I'm not misremembering here, right?
No, I don't even think this was advertised as a match. Yeah.
Well, I'm just really glad that they took all of that build-up time that they saved and devoted it to Lawler versus Roberts.
Well, that 3-month build-up to that.
Yeah.
Longer than the Undertaker Mankind build-up.
Well, I tried to segue over to something a little more disturbing because something else that is also very disturbing, and that's fucking Todd Pettingzoo in the Boiler Room. And we got the word here from Todd that what determines the winner of the Boiler Room Brawl coming up later this evening is whoever gets a hold of the urn first. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I'm pretty sure this is the first time that we've heard the stipulation on how to win the match.
Sure is.
Yeah, I don't remember ever hearing it. I mean, they keep on talking about it all day as if it was an established fact already.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't remember ever hearing that.
Todd comes across Mankind there, sitting in the dark of the Boiler Room, and Mankind cuts a great promo. He is just loving the Boiler Room down there. He's literally licking it as part of his promo. Now, there's usually not that much going on in between matches on these pay-per-views, or at least not enough to really talk about, but this is an obvious exception. Joe, what did you think about Todd Pettingzoom and Mankind in the Boiler Room?
Really just two things I thought that were funny was Jim Ross and his southern twang asking, was he licking that thing? And also at the very end, while Mankind is still kind of talking, we hear the Rockers music in the background.
I enjoyed this outside of Todd Pettingzoom being the one putting it on. I think he said dark and ominous like 5 times while he was walking around. But once we get to Mankind, great promo. This is just another example of not just Mankind, but Mick Foley and the way that he's able to portray this gimmick, because he is the one that is screaming at the top of his lungs like a stuck pig that is making this work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Speaking of stuck pigs. Suey!
We're going to leave the Boiler Room to go to our next match. The Smoking Guns, Billy and Bart, with Sonny, defeat the Body Donnas, Skip and Zip, the New Rockers, Marty Jannetty and Leif Cassidy, and the Godwins, Henry and Phineas with Hillbilly Jim, by pinfall in 12 minutes and 18 seconds in a fatal 4-way elimination match to retain the WWF Tag Team Championships. I admit that I maybe had to check the litter box here. I was not excited for this at all, given the whole fatal 4-way angle, given some of the teams involved, given the lack of real build-up, given the fact that we didn't get hardly any definition of what was going to happen here going into this. Billy Gunn yelling into the camera as they were coming down to the ring came across like he was just trying way too hard. Henry Godwin looked great at the start of this. Billy worked pretty well with him, but things slowed down, and I didn't like that. So much time was spent in confusion in the ring. And then Phineas and Zip teaming up to both tag both of the Guns. Like, you know, that's some kind of genius tactic. And rather than working well, all it did was kill time. I'm not saying it was a bad idea, but something was lost in the execution, I think, here. Things didn't improve after the Body Donnas were eliminated. That just meant that the new and improved Rockers would get more ring time, and none of that looked good, unfortunately. The arguing between heel teams was tedious. Once the new and improved Rockers were eliminated, things evened out a little bit. But again, Billy Gunn yelling at Henry and calling him a big sissy. It felt really overworked. Everything about Billy Gunn in this match for me, crossed the line into ham territory. And I hate to say it, but that's kind of the big takeaway here for me. Billy Gunn ruined a lot of this match for me. And I do genuinely hate to say it. I'm an ass man. I'm a Billy Gunn fan. You know, it's not like this whole thing had a lot going on for it to begin with, but even so, the finish was just as ridiculous as the rest of it, and at one point the ref looked to see if the finish had gotten there yet while he was distracted, but the timing was off, so the ref just looked directly at the cheating as it was happening, and then quickly looked away. It was fast, but we got a perfect camera angle of it. And then after the finish, we get more Billy Gunn yelling stuff, Sonny yelling stuff. None of it worked at all. And even at the end, whenever Sonny, for some reason, decided to display this big canvas thing with her portrait painted on it, it just fell flat for me. Guys, I don't think that I can add anything else to this other than the fact that this was a fucking dud. Ryan, what did you think of it?
Yeah, this was a rough one to get through. Maybe not as rough as Skip was having with his neck brace, but they start off by telling us the special rules for this match, and I immediately think to the stupid Raw Bowl that we had.
Yeah.
And it had the same stupid rules. We talked about how dumb and how much it didn't work there. The fact that both members of the same team could be tagged in. So we got the exact same spot that we got in that match. 2 members of the same team tagged in, and then they just kind of look at each other and look confused and then tag in other people. Like you said, just waste time. Just waste some more time. And then we have 4 teams out here, 2 of them babyface, 2 of them heels. But the only person that is getting any attention from the crowd is the heel manager, Sunny. The crowd is literally chanting for her while they ignore this boring, stupid match. When we get down to the end, it got a little bit better when it's just the Godwins and the Smoking Guns, but the ending was so dumb. Not only did we see the ref, look at the cheating, but why was he distracted in the first place? All this was Hillbilly Bill going after another manager. No one from this match was even involved. Why did the ref even give a fuck? Pay attention to the fucking match. It doesn't matter because at the end we learn what this was really all for, and it was to display this giant Sunny poster. I mean, that's it. No surprise here. This terrible tag team destruction was a dud.
Yeah, what a clusterfuck. The rules right off the bat were just terrible. This probably should have been booked originally as the Smoking Guns versus the Godwins, because you kind of knew it was going to come down to those 2 anyway. But we get this 4-way. What do they even call this match?
This was titled a Fatal 4-Way Elimination.
Fatal 4-Way. And I want to talk about Sunny because she's obviously the main attraction here. I still think they should have shifted her into some other role, such as maybe a host of the event, maybe do some interviews in ring and backstage. Just get her out of the valet. We can still see her every show, just not with a wrestler, because we have 8 competitors in this match and nobody cares about any of those 8 guys.
All they cared about was that big poster.
The big poster, yeah. Which, by the way, when she was getting in the ring to cut that promo and reveal the poster, the cameraman goes right up the skirt and Vince immediately says, "Whoops, pardon us."
I didn't direct him to do that or anything.
Again, I'm beating a dead horse, but this heel stuff with the guns is not working. Billy just keeps yelling, like you said, Bartlett. It sounds overworked. And Bart is fucking silent. He's not doing anything that resembles heel behavior ever. He's never talking or even doing any type of facial expressions, just nothing. That needs to change too very soon. So yeah, this was flat. I gave it 1 star just because, like the Gund Arena people, I like to see Sunny. So I gave it 1 star. Dave Meltzer gave this a dud rating. He said it was another major disappointment and far worse than reports and what we have seen of this same match at house shows.
This was not good. And it sucks because I really like the Smoking Guns as a babyface team. I like Henry Godwin and Phineas, like
Marty Jannetty.
Well, fuckers. Let's take a look at this next segment. It was a video package of how to get to the Gund Arena, I think. It was really just lame is what it was. It was a race between a train and a stagecoach, and holy shit, the train won. Who would have thought? And the Smoking Guns couldn't believe it. Thanks, Todd, for your running commentary on that one. And then the next segment here was Jerry the King Lawler at a Cleveland Indians practice and game. That was mildly entertaining, seeing Jerry Lawler,
formerly the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah, Guardians.
Throwing out the first pitch of the game there. Then we got footage of the superstars helping to paint over graffiti there in downtown Cleveland. It was good to see babyface and heel alike putting aside their differences to stand shoulder to shoulder and paint some brick walls. And then Paul Bearer and The Undertaker gave away a free funeral to what looked like T.L. Hopper.
his career.
And there we have it. Once again, a relatively large segment between matches on this pay-per-view. Just briefly, Ryan, what did you think of the race to the Gund Arena and everything that followed?
The race to the Gund Arena, it seemed like, especially with what Phineas and Henry say after they win, it seemed like it was just a commercial for the local public transit of Cleveland.
Yeah.
They were like, yay, take public transit. The King stuff with the Indians, it just made me think of the movie Major League and Randy Newman singing a song about the Chattanooga River burning. So that brought back a good memory for me. And then completely dumbfounded by the statement, Paul Bearer and The Undertaker gave away a funeral. Did a fan die and they gave like a free funeral? Or, what exactly did they mean by that?
Most of it was pretty cheesy, but I guess it's cool that they're highlighting the cities that they're in. We've seen this a couple times. So that was pretty cool, yeah. The paint the town thing was, once again, it reminded me of Sister Act when they're painting over graffiti.
Oh, my, yes.
And cool to see Mark Henry there. They're doing good things in the town, so that's always good to see.
Yeah, totally agreed there. Well, we're going to keep this train moving and go now into our next match. Sycho Sid defeats the British Bulldog by pinfall in 6 minutes and 24 seconds. We got a promo from Sid at the start. It was hard to hear a lot of it because Sid was whispering a good chunk of it while the Bulldog's music was blaring in the background. I noticed another Goldust cosplayer there in the audience while Sid was coming out. That was pretty cool. And Sid's entrance felt like it took forever. It was funny to hear the fans cheering Sycho Sid, like being psycho is a good thing. And once the work got going, it wasn't too bad, keeping in mind that you've got two powerhouses here. There's not going to be a lot of technical wrestling, not a lot of finesse in the moves, but, not too shabby. There was a lot of time spent in holds, but that's almost forgivable, given how much these guys were putting into the few moves they were doing. Clarence Mason came out, and he was cheering on the Bulldog like he was earlier with Owen, but then Jim Cornette showed up to yell at Clarence Mason, and that was kind of an unwelcome distraction. That crossed the line into not interesting. Sid's chokeslam of the Bulldog looked good, and so did the powerbomb to finish it off. Even though everyone came out of this looking as good as they possibly could, relatively speaking, it was still just a little too dull for me all around. Wasn't great, but it wasn't a dud either, so I ended up going with 1 star here. Joe, please, what did you think?
Yeah, I once again, I really enjoy the babyface version of Sid right now and his promo. He's doing his master and ruler of the world thing, which it's fine. I mean, he's cutting good promos, but Sid for me is like the ultimate example of, and then the bell rang.
Yeah.
Everything he does, except for his matches, is great. He's killing time with his entrance. He's having these short matches. So, I mean, he's not doing anything terrible, but you're not going to see an exciting match with Sid. I would maybe like to see him against a Shawn Michaels or a Bret Hart or even a Stone Cold Steve Austin, maybe, just to see like how he could work with those guys. The other thing, too, is his opponent, the Bulldog. You guys have mentioned time for a change with Owen Hart's music, maybe.
Yeah.
I think the British Bulldog needs to go back to babyface. I think we've seen all we can see from him as a heel. He's still coming out with this patriotic music. So, again, it's like, how can you be a heel with that? So I feel like they need to switch him back. Clarence Mason, I'm curious as to where they're going with this, with Jim Cornette coming out and yelling at him. I'm not sure what's going on there. But yeah, everything about Sid right now is great until the bell rings, but nothing terrible here. I gave it 1 star.
For the most part, this was a typical Sid match. And Sid came down, though. My Lord, is he over with the crowd? Yeah. I mean, the amount of signs that I saw for Sid really shocked. I don't remember Sid being this big of a fan favorite growing up, but man, they seem to really love him. towards the beginning when him and Bulldog are kind of exchanging power moves between each other, we get a great JR-ism when he's talking about Sid. He uses his classic raw, unadulterated power about Sid, and I always loved that statement, so it was good to hear that out of JR. But after some power moves at the beginning, we then go into the typical holds. Anytime Bulldog is up against a bigger guy, we get a lot of these holds, and that happened here. Joe, I'm in your camp with the Mason Cornette thing. I mean, we had Vince all night throwing in little tidbits to set this up. I'm interested to see where they're going to go with this. And to cover another point of yours, hopefully we'll get a babyface Bulldog out of it or something. Maybe he'll change. The ending was pretty standard. Sid hit a good-looking chokeslam power bomb for the victory, and the crowd seemed to love it. For these two guys, I'm actually going to go 1 star higher and give it a 2-star, only because I think I was expecting a worse match out of these two. I was expecting it to be even slower than it was.
Well, that's good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
That's a great way to look at it. What'd Meltzer think of it, Joe?
It's funny you say that, Ryan, because Dave Meltzer says this match was better than one would think.
Well, there you go.
He gave it 1 star.
Well, I see that Ryan has now subscribed to the Dave Meltzer School of Wrestling Thought, and we can expect more of that moving forward.
His office may be a little more clean than Dave's.
And with that comparison, I will be drinking a whole tub of poison after we record tonight.
Moving along, there is an in-your-house commercial. Those aliens that were hanging out with that dude watching TV a couple months ago, they're back, and they've brought Earth Babes into the dude's living room. This was pitching the upcoming Mind Games pay-per-view next month. But it seems like there won't be an extended segment between these contests as we go into our next match. Goldust with Marlena defeats the Wild Man Mark Marrow with Sable by pinfall in 11 minutes and 1 second. While Goldust was giving his entrance, we had Petting Zoo backstage helping to perpetuate the ongoing story revolving around Sable. All roads lead back to Sable, mentioning that Goldust made public his infatuation with Sable. Apparently, Mankind showed up to ringside while Sable was there, calling her mommy. Sable was appropriately disgusted. This is a flashback to an earlier match. I just want to note here at the beginning of this match that Sable's dress looked like it was designed to be ripped off. It doesn't get ripped off. I'm just throwing that out there that it looked like it was designed to be tearaway. Marlena looked amazing as always, though. God damn. The combination of predictability at the start here was unfortunate. The mild man's arm drag combo being interrupted by Goldust's chicken shit heel behavior. It's like that 1-2 punch of mediocrity going on in the ring and shit that I just don't like. I liked Mr. Perfect chastising Vince McMahon for talking about something other than the match in the ring when McMahon started talking about Ahmed Johnson's kidney. And I had to pause the playback, though, and take a breath once Mankind came out, creeping up on Sable and calling her mommy, which was pretty damn entertaining until Sable started screaming bloody fucking murder, but not running away. This was like some terrible drama improvisation scene. She was literally screaming like it was the most horrific experience of her entire fucking life, but not horrified enough to get the hell away from Mankind. She backed up, she inched away from him while just, oh my God, it's pissing me off all over again just rereading my notes.
She was paralyzed with fear.
It was some of the worst. Okay, I'm just going to keep going because I'll get bogged down in this. I hate to say it, but I had to go check the litter box status again.
Jeez.
Because there was nothing at all about the mild man that was interesting in this match. Even when Goldust was carrying the mild man and just fell out of the ring with him on his shoulders, I wasn't interested. A couple times it looked like the mild man wasn't strong enough to lift or manipulate Goldust. I'm not sure if he just honestly wasn't strong enough or maybe he was blown up or something. I don't know. And then just as I was finishing that last note, the mild man did something that made me jump up and flinch and say Jesus Christ out loud. He attempted what was supposed to be a shooting star press and came damn close to botching it straight on his head, given the height he got leading into it, and he fucking got up there. If he hadn't have pulled that out at the last second, that would have been a career ender. Even the replays of that looked fucking terrible. Shortly after that, Goldust hit a decent curtain call to end it, and thank God it was over because I didn't know how much more of this fucking match I could take. We got more of that disgusting screaming from Sable after the finish as Goldust was there with her in the ring, trying to stand her up to come with him, I guess. I don't know. There was a couple mentions during this match about some kind of deal where if Goldust wins, he gets Sable, but obviously that's bullshit. I don't know where Vince McMahon was pulling that out of, but anyway, she's screaming bloody murder again, which of course prompts Mero to come out of the unconsciousness that he was in whenever Goldust originally pinned him to attack Goldust again. He didn't attack the referees and officials though, because, they were going to just let Goldust abduct Sable, but they're faultless here apparently. Obviously, this was a dud for me, and I hate saying that about a Goldust match, but Mero and Sable fucking ruined this. Mero was just plain boring, but Sable's horror movie screaming was one of the stupidest fucking things I've ever seen or heard in a wrestling match, and that's saying something. It did nothing to elevate this story or add an extra layer to things, and in reality, all it did was make me want to turn this pay-per-view off. Ryan, please, what did you think of it?
Going into this match, I wasn't expecting much, and that's mostly because of the mild man Mark Mero and not Goldust. But there was very little to like. I didn't mind a little bit of the chicken shit heel stuff out of Goldust at the very beginning when Mark slapped him and he pulled the ref in front of him and he blocked him. I didn't mind that. I got a little bit of a laugh out of that. I also enjoyed Mankind coming down and screaming mommy at Sable, but like you, once Sable, her screaming, it reminded me of like a 70s or 80s horror movie when they would put the camera just on the woman screaming, and it's just her standing there screaming and not moving at all. That's what it looked like. It didn't look good. It looked like it was just as well acted as a 70s B-rate horror movie. Then the action in the ring just kind of got predictable. They tell us Mero has a new finisher, and it would have looked a lot better if he could have nailed it properly, but he didn't. He almost killed himself. And then Goldust, his finisher, the curtain call, always looks good. Sadly, kind of what I was expecting out of the match, though. It was a dud for me as well. I want to see Goldust in some better programs. I'm really getting tired of him being put with terrible wrestlers.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it.
Oh, the mild man. Once again, we get him on our screens. This time wearing tassels, like Marty Jannetty, all over his new ring gear. Mm-hmm. Sable with her dress instead of the barbed wire outfit that we've seen on her pretty much every week. Jim Ross pointing out that Goldust is working a more aggressive style recently was a nice note because he really is.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I didn't love this match, but I think that there wasn't a whole lot of shenanigans with Goldust because most of it was with Mankind outside the ring. I mean, there was nothing for me to really dislike about Goldust in this match. The stuff with Mankind and Sable, I liked it for the reasons you guys did not like it.
You like the cheese.
I like those shitty movies. Number one, Sable is a bad actress. We all know that. So Mankind comes out. They probably tell her, hey, just act like you're just fucking frightened of this deranged killer. And that's exactly what she did. I mean, it was terrible, screaming bloody murder like a shitty horror movie, and that's probably what they told her to do, and she did. I didn't really dislike that. I kind of liked it. I thought, I was laughing my ass off at Mankind that Sable didn't bother me as much because Mankind was fucking hilarious. Same high risk shit from Mild Man every match. We don't really get anything new until this match. We get the fucking wild thing, but he lost the match. So why would you break out a new finisher when you know you're going to lose the match? I don't get that. The cosplay Goldust guy was removed by security during this match. Did you guys see that?
No, I missed it.
He got kicked out of his seat. I don't know what happened, if he was in the wrong seat or yeah, but they kicked him out. So like I said, I didn't really hate this that much. I kind of have the same feelings I had about the first match with Owen and Savio. I gave this 2 stars. I thought that the stuff with Goldust and the stuff with Mankind and Sable was good, but mostly because of Goldust and Mankind.
Yeah, I will absolutely agree that Mankind was good in this. So that's not what's at issue here, dude. What'd Meltzer say?
Dave Meltzer said he gave it 2 stars. He said, for some reason, these two did not work as well as you would think. Goldust's knee may be bothering him again, as he didn't do all that much.
Okay. Well, speaking of body parts bothering people and people not doing too much because of it, let's review the ongoing Ahmed Johnson story. Just real quick here in between matches. Ahmed's nurse, Pam Taylor, looked an awful lot like Tanya Harding. The takeaway here is that on the next Raw, there's going to be another fatal 4-way between the final 4 entrants in that Battle Royale we had a couple weeks ago, with the winner competing against someone as yet unnamed for the Intercontinental title on a special Friday edition of Monday Night Raw in September. And then along with his manager, Sonny, Todd Pettingzoo is going to introduce Farouk in the ring for an interview. Jesus, this helmet looked terrible. I think they gave him a new one that looked even worse than the original one.
This one's blue instead of silver now.
Yeah. And just as I was trying to soldier my way through this, I was asking myself if it could get any worse, and then it did. I got reminded that the next match was going to be Lawler and Roberts, and we got a video package highlighting that history. Things did get a little better as Howard Finkel introduced Mark Henry, the newest member of the WWF roster. So that was pretty cool to hear the official word that Mark Henry was on the roster now. But before we move along, just real briefly, Ryan, what did you think about how we're keeping that Intercontinental title scene going?
I mean, I guess they have to address it. Ahmed Johnson's actually injured here. So I don't mind this little brief explanation to us as to how they're going to, seat the new IC champ. So I didn't mind it. The stuff with Farouk, he still looks bad. I don't care if they changed the color of his helmet or not. This was just a stupid promo. Again, had to do something with him. He was supposed to have a match here with Ahmed, but I think mostly it's just the stuff with Sonny. It just looks awkward. He should not be here with Sonny.
Yeah, the stuff with Ahmed is the classic Vince McMahon move to take a real life situation and just fucking crank up the drama to, put him over more as a babyface. And with Farouk, I agree. Sonny is taking away too much attention from him. It doesn't make any sense. If they look at this, they probably regret not putting him with maybe Handsome Harvey or Clarence Mason, or even if you're going to do this stupid gladiator gimmick, maybe bring in some other random girl to go along with this shitty gladiator thing. It doesn't work for me, brother.
Yeah. Luna Vachon could have come back from the future to go into the past to bring a gladiator to modern times. She has the technology. Well, as I said earlier, Finkel had introduced Mark Henry. Mark Henry is going to be joining commentary as we go into our next match. Jerry the King Lawler defeats Jake the Snake Roberts by pinfall in 4 minutes and 7 seconds. The litter box has never been so clean. It looks like Harvey Whippleman's going to be the referee in the ring for this match. That gave me a little bit of hope. But then there was a lot of talking from Jerry Lawler at the start, so much so that I had time to go out and buy a whole nother litter box to bring home and clean. The talk continues even after Jake was in the ring. Why was Harvey Whippleman keeping Jake from attacking Lawler while the talk was going on? Like, shouldn't he have just gotten out of the way to let the actual match start? And then when Jake whipped out the snake, That snake definitely got stepped on and tromped on and rolled over on a few times while Jake and Jerry were wrestling on top of it. I did not like that at all. The match did eventually start after even more talking, but I'll be goddamned if any of it looked good. I thought that the Mild Man match was insufferable, but this was a million times worse for me. Of course, Jerry Lawler hit Jake in the throat with a bottle of whiskey to get the win, and it kept going with more alcohol bullshit afterwards. The only item of note being Mark Henry rescuing Jake from having more alcohol poured all over him. Obviously, a dud for me. I came really close to fast-forwarding this. This was a gigantic waste of time in every way possible. I hated every second of it. Joe, please, what did you think of it?
Well, let's see. Since we started this show, we've seen Clowns Are Us. We've seen underwear match between Fink and Handsome Harvey.
Yep.
We've seen baby bottle shit. We've seen what other stupid shit have we seen? Kiss My Foot.
Yeah.
I have nothing to say about this. I mean, he comes out doing a stand-up routine that is the worst thing I've ever seen. This is the worst thing I've ever seen on a wrestling show. I give it a dud.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just start off with, clearly this is a dud. The only thing that I liked was Lawler coming out decked out in Baltimore Ravens gear. This is right around the time that the Cleveland Browns, in the middle of the night, moved to Baltimore and became the Baltimore Ravens. And what kind of made this even better is Jerry the King Lawler is a huge Browns fan. So, it had to kind of hurt him to come out here and push the Baltimore Ravens as much as he did, but he knew it was going to get him some cheap heat, and it did. But outside of that, terrible. This just terrible. As you said, Joe, you listed off some of the worst things that we've seen in our time doing this, and this ranks right up there with them. It was fucking bad.
Joe, what did Meltzer think of it? He probably gave it like fucking 7 stars.
No, he gave it a dud. He had no comment either.
All right, well, less said about that fucking match, the better. Backlund was in the crowd again here. Ryan, pro or con?
We didn't even really see him because of the camera angle, so that was a positive.
Okay.
I feel like he should have been talking about the state-of-the-art transportation, though, to
yeah, really get over that.
Be a little bit more political,
No, instead we save that for the redneck hillbillies.
Let's talk infrastructure. Well, thank you for that. Backlund is catching up to himself again. We get another small video package highlighting the ongoing feud between The Undertaker and Mankind, which takes us into our next match. Mankind defeats The Undertaker in the Boiler Room Brawl in 26 minutes and 40 seconds. The footage of The Undertaker entering the Boiler Room was kind of neat, like the way that they amped up the tension of really showing Undertaker like gathering himself before he opens the door, like that kind of feeling to it. And JR addressed my first thought immediately. I can't imagine what it's like to be the cameraman assigned to this task. And you have to think that Mankind has an advantage here, since The Undertaker has a cameraman with a spotlight on the camera following him around. It's probably pretty easy for Mankind to hide and then ambush him, which is exactly what happened. But then it got going, and Joe, I had to think of you with just how much Mankind was making his hacha, hacha.
Oh, God. It was nonstop.
There were a lot of odd feelings going on within me while I was watching this. There wasn't much commentary going on for the bulk of this. As a matter of fact, there was almost zero commentary, and that didn't frame this very well for me. I'm just going to throw it out there. That was a bad thing for me. I'm not sure why. And I'm willing to get into that if you guys want, but the action between the two of these guys was very decent. It was good to watch, at least as decent as a match like this can be with all of the weapons and implements, being used in it. And I think that was maybe part of some of my problem with it. At the time this aired, it was so incredibly different than so much of what the WWF had done before. But now, looking back at it 25 years later, the Boiler Room Brawl pales in comparison to what's happened since then. And I'm not trying to make any real direct comparisons. I'm just saying that maybe my lenses are a little clouded when it comes to this kind of thing. Because I watched a ton of ECW and, I'm kind of spoiled on it. This type of match doesn't really hold up all these years later, as far as I'm concerned. And that's not a direct negative critique. It was revolutionary at the time that it happened. It's just... This is 2022 now, unfortunately. There were technical difficulties at a few points here in the match where you could hear the live crowd booing in the background while we had the rainbow difficulties bar screen thing up there. Especially that one set of difficulties closer to the end of the match in the Boiler Room. That went on forever. And as much noise as Mankind was making, and as much as you could hear the crowd sometimes reacting, this was almost like a silent match, just all around. There was some noise, but it just, with the lack of commentary, it was awkward for me. And I hate to say it, that lack of commentary made this kind of boring for me, up until they busted out into the hallway where the rest of the wrestlers were hanging out around the various locker rooms. Having that miniature crowd there reacting to what Mankind and The Undertaker were doing in the hallway, that immediately improved things for me. And then at the same time, commentary started talking much more about it too. And it started to pick up for me from there, especially as they worked out onto the floor towards the ring. Side note, those TVs at ringside that the crowd had to watch all the backstage stuff on surprised the hell out of me.
You need fucking binoculars to see those.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine it would be on the Jumbotron as well.
Well, that's the thing is I thought that with this being a brand new arena, that they would have it's a sports arena. They would have one of those big 4-screened honking things hanging down from the middle of the ceiling. But no, apparently it was just on 4 fucking 30-inch console TVs.
I'm guessing the TVs were for the people that were up front, ringside.
Right up front there.
Okay.
But still, they're so small at that time. I mean,
what were you going to do? That was the televisions of the time. There were no 72-inch flat screens that you could go out and get.
They were like the school TVs on the cart.
25 inches, yeah.
And I like that they kept calling them monitors, but they were these huge fucking old TVs, yeah.
But then, in the match, towards the finish, the unthinkable happens. The one twist that was never once telegraphed, that literally nobody saw coming. In a turn, Paul Bearer hits The Undertaker in the face with the urn and then gives the urn to Mankind as well as the victory. After Paul Bearer and Mankind left amidst garbage raining down on them, the lights went out and a mass of druids came out to Gregorian chants. Some of these druids were wearing referee shoes, some were wearing wrestling boots. And they carried The Undertaker out on their shoulders. The Undertaker stretched out Christ-like between them as they walk him up the entryway. Whew, I was really conflicted here. I honestly didn't care for the first 15, 20 minutes of this whenever they were in the Boiler Room. I thought it was boring. But as they got out of the Boiler Room and back to the ring, it instantly picked up for me. Paul Bearer turning on The Undertaker had me popping my ass off. Not just because, I knew it was going to happen eventually, but because I forgot the exact circumstance of how it had happened. And this was almost like me watching it brand new all over again. But then the druids kind of took it down again for a quick minute. But then once I saw what they were doing and once I saw that they were literally carrying out the Undertaker as though the Undertaker were Jesus on the cross, they had me again. And as conflicted as I was, I ended up going with 2 stars on this. Ryan, please, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I'm going to differ from you quite a bit. Learning about the stipulation at the beginning, that was new. That was a tidbit I didn't remember. But I agree with you on the way The Undertaker slowly walked down the hallway and into the boiler room. I thought that was pretty cool. I also liked the scene where The Undertaker is in the boiler room kind of stalking around looking for Mankind, and then Mankind surprises him from behind and hits him with, I don't know, what looked like was a gutter or something.
Yeah.
But then once it starts, I also noticed the lack of commentary, which was made even more clear by the poor audio coming out of the boiler room too, because you have the loud hum of the boiler, and it was only made better because Foley's screaming was about the only thing you could make out over any of it. And with the commentary, I thought it was kind of odd. I'm still not completely right on how I want to think about that. I'm not sure if I like or dislike the commentary or the lack thereof it, but the one thing I thought was kind of interesting was the commentary picked up the closer they got to the exit. It was almost like while they were in the boiler room, they were trying to treat it as a real event. And the closer it got to the ring, the closer it became a real wrestling match. And the commentary picked up and you could hear the crowd more. I thought that actually added something to it as the match went on. It was like this evolution of the match as they got to the ring. And the stuff in the boiler room, I don't know, it didn't really bore me. I thought these guys were beating the hell out of each other for the most part. I mean, by the time they got out, they were both bleeding from multiple places on their body. The technical difficulty parts were probably, in my opinion, the worst spot. I mean, the fans didn't like it, and, neither did I. I don't know if it was a work or not, but the fact that the stuff in the boiler room was pre-recorded makes me think it was a work and not actual technical difficulties. I could have done without that, but it all really leads up to this finish, though. When Paul Bearer turns on The Undertaker, it's something that I knew was coming, but it didn't matter. It had just a big impact on me. The ultimate betrayal. The most beautiful face in wrestling turning on the fucking Undertaker. It's one of the most memorable spots, from this time. You have Paul Bearer who, 5-6 years he's been with The Undertaker, and he turns on him here, making The Undertaker even a bigger baby face somehow. I mean, they somehow are making you even more sympathetic for this dead man dressed in all black that lives in a coffin. I enjoyed the druids too. The moment I saw them, I didn't realize that this was also the same point we got the druids, and it makes me a little bit excited only because this is the next evolution of The Undertaker is going to be the druids coming down to the ring with him with no Paul Bearer. So I'm excited for all of this. I don't know if I just was able to block the next 20 years of my watching out, or maybe it's just because I'm such a huge asshole for The Undertaker and Mankind, but I gave this fucking thing 4 stars, mostly because of the Paul Bearer betrayal. What that does for the storytelling between these two just brings it to a new level.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of these now in 1996. We saw the backlot brawl at WrestleMania, and now we're getting the Boiler Room Brawl, which I can confirm that the entire boiler room piece was recorded. Mm-hmm. Do you guys remember when somebody busted out of the boiler room and there was a referee standing there by the door?
Yeah.
That is when they went live.
Okay.
At that moment. Now, for me, I think that all of the stuff that happened in the boiler room, I thought it was pretty boring. I never thought I would say this, but having no commentary at all was pretty bad. I think if they were to go back and look at this, they probably regret that, but maybe not. I don't know. It made it drag a little bit too long for me. I think if they would have been in the boiler room for like 5 to 10 minutes at the most, it would have been okay, but I think they were in there a little longer. And this Undertaker stalking, looking for Mankind at the beginning, I think that went a little bit too long too. It was almost like I was watching a silent horror movie from the 1920s, like he's just walking around looking for him. So I didn't care for the boiler room piece, but after they busted out of that door, I fucking loved everything. I loved the stuff they were doing in the back with the wrestlers back there, like cheering on The Undertaker. And then when they came back in the ring and everything, I loved all of that. Like, I remember the Boiler Room Brawl. I remember the Paul Bearer turn, but it's all foggy for me. Like, I was basically going into this new. I couldn't remember that this was even where Paul Bearer turned on The Undertaker.
Yeah.
And that was extremely well done. 6 years.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very ballsy move for Vince McMahon to do this, because it's not even like people were getting sick of it either.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys could have kept going, but Vince McMahon made a ballsy move to utilize, look, I got this Mankind guy. I'm going to utilize him more because he is over, and I'm going to do this turn. So fucking props to Vince McMahon for doing this. And great job by The Undertaker, too, for making this look as heartbreaking as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's crawling towards Paul Bearer, and Paul Bearer hits him over the head, and the druids carry him out. I got to say, this should have ended the show.
Yeah, it felt like an ending.
I understand you got to, you want your championship match, but this should have ended the show, and this is tough to follow if you're Shawn Michaels and Vader, but I give it 3 stars. I would have gone higher, but I just did not like the Boiler Room piece.
Yeah.
Dave Meltzer actually did not give this a rating because he said so much of it was taped that he didn't think it was fair to give it a rating. But he did say that Paul Bearer was great at doing the heel turn, and both Mankind and Undertaker worked very hard.
They didn't telegraph it at all.
No.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Couple teasers, but nothing that you saw coming.
Really, the main teaser is the accidental hit last pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Paul Bearer accidentally hits Undertaker. And then I think King made a statement. Oh, was it on an accident? And that's kind of the only hint that we got in the last month.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I wasn't sure if this was when it was going to happen. I thought maybe it was going to be later, because I feel like for some reason my brain was telling me that they built up to this for a long time, but they didn't.
Same here, Joe. Like I was kind of fuzzy going into this, not really remembering things clearly, and I was surprised that this is when it happened.
I knew that this was the turn. I didn't remember the druid part.
Yeah.
That was like I said during my breakdown. I didn't remember that we got the druids the same night as the Paul Bearer turn.
All right. Well, in a drastic change of tone and scene, we go from the Dark Druids straight to Vader woofing around while Jim Cornette was ranting behind him to Doc Hendricks. And that is going to take us into our final match of the night. Shawn Michaels with Jose Lothario defeats Vader with Jim Cornette by pinfall in 28 minutes and 59 seconds to retain the WWF Championship. And my first note here, I was already pretty fatigued going into our headlining match. The mid-card of this pay-per-view hit me hard. The tag team, the Wild Man, Jerry Lawler and Jake Roberts, it did things to me. I was not a happy camper going into these last 2 matches. And I tried my best to keep a fair mind, and things didn't start out too bad. I have to admit, I was a little concerned where we would go in what amounts to a half-hour match, but I figured I would give Shawn Michaels the benefit of the doubt at the very least. And Shawn Michaels did a great job of building and maintaining energy at the start of this with his more high-flying maneuvers while Vader was outside. And then, from the top turnbuckle, some stuff started to get really telegraphed, though. Shawn, waiting for Vader to get into position where he was, Vader waiting to catch. Even Vader catching Shawn to reverse him into a powerbomb at the outside was just a little bit telegraphed with the way they set it up. Vader carrying Michaels up the steps to dump him in the ring was just kind of unnecessary, and it looked like it got Vader a little blown up trying to do it. After a little time moving around the ring, Vader's suplex of Shawn looked good, but then things started to go downhill a little bit more as the clash in styles between these two started to become what looked more like a clash in personalities. There were times here where Shawn looked visibly frustrated with the action and the way that Vader was interacting with him. To Vader's credit, he didn't look any different than he usually does. I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing here. When Vader had his foot on Shawn on the mat, the ref should have counted that. He could have gotten at least 2 out of it, but he didn't even think to. Michaels looked like he ended up just like kicking Vader in the head for real after Michaels came off the top turnbuckle, some of that frustration I mentioned earlier. Did you guys see that guy freaking out in the crowd when Vader dropped Michaels on the divider?
Yeah. No.
He was standing right there at the divider where Michaels got dropped, and he started losing his fucking mind. He was marking out very hard. I wish I could be that excited about something. Michaels ended up getting counted out there, and then Jim Cornette got on the mic and wanted the match restarted. I thought that was a nice little piece of storytelling there. What was even more entertaining was the timing during that announcement that the match would continue. Shawn was still ambling around, but as soon as Finkel said that the match would continue, Vader was right there to clothesline Shawn Michaels to the floor in the entryway. Something that I realized while watching this is that this is some of the most monster-like wrestling Vader has been in since his debut, and I'm not sure what exactly to attribute that to, but just the way that he was working this, it felt very monster-like. And then things got even more fucking weird as Cornette's tennis racket got brought in and used by Michaels, drawing another disqualification, and the second win for Vader in this match. But of course, Cornette calls Shawn a coward, which gets the match going again. Eventually, the fucking official gets knocked out of the ring, bringing in a new official. It's a good thing Shawn moved out of the way of the moonsault, because he wasn't in the right position for it anyway. Then Michaels got a moonsault of his own, getting the pin and the 3 count, and a clean win to finish the night. I honestly don't know what to say about this. I'm not sure if I was just fatigued from all of the previous matches or what, but I had zero excitement going into this match, and the match itself didn't engage me all that well. I ended up going with 1 star on it, mostly due to the 3 fucking finishes. This could have been a 2-star match, but Joe, I've been really curious to hear your thoughts on this match, so please give them to us.
This is tough for me because watching this match now in current day, I feel like I have a completely different opinion than I would have in 1996 on this match. Well, first off, Vader is supposed to be this imposing, intimidating monster. However, from the time Shawn Michaels came out, he showed he was not intimidated at all by Vader. And he's getting in all this offense to start the match, and I feel like that hurt the match. I feel like if I was Pat Patterson or whoever's producing this match, like, Shawn should be getting his ass kicked for most of this and then make a big comeback. But that's not how this went, and it's just confusing from the beginning to me. Vader just doesn't look like the monster to me. He just looks like another hill that Shawn has to climb, not a big deal.
Yeah.
Shawn's incredibly unprofessional behavior with kicking Vader in the head because he didn't move on fucking live television, like, that's not a good look. I hate restarts, and I really hate 2 of them. So it's hard, I mean, especially because the first one, Cornette says, we want a winner. Well, if you want a winner, then why would Vader just climb back in the ring and win by countout? Why wouldn't he grab Shawn and throw him back in the ring?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just stupid to me. And the second restart was just, what the fuck is going on at this point? And then the finish was bizarre because the Sweet Chin music happened, and then it looked like Vader did not kick out, but it was only a 2 count. There was just some weird shit going on there. I don't know. I gave this a dud because I expected much better, and Shawn is not in this mentally, you can tell.
Yeah.
And I just didn't like it.
We talked about last week the lack of a build up to this match, and it definitely hurt it. And their action in the ring, didn't do much to elevate it either. The stuff wasn't bad. And to be honest, with Vader, and, this isn't really saying much as far as his work at the WWF, but this was one of his better matches in the fact that, Jesus, he went 30 minutes,
Yeah.
I'm guessing that 50 pounds that he lost recently, helped that to be the case here. But Unfortunately, nothing about this match felt special. It just felt very normal and very uneventful. And that's how the entire match went. There is, you're not going to hear, you guys didn't talk about it, and I'm not either. There's no real spots to talk about in this 30-minute match because it's all just very blasé stuff. Nothing exciting. I mean, to me, the most exciting thing was getting to hear the Fink say, "And the match will continue." That's not because I like restarts. I'm with you, Joe. I hate them. I just like to hear the Fink say it. The match itself, man, what a snoozer. I mean, that's about it. The ending where they each kick out of each other's finisher, I guess that was a little bit clever. You know, that's something we haven't seen in an ending too much yet, where people start kicking out of other people's finisher, especially both guys. But this did nothing to highlight the heavyweight championship, in my opinion. And I didn't quite go with a dud, but I'm with you, Bartlett. This was a 1-star match.
I have to say that I'm shocked to learn that Jim Cornette yelling at Jose Lothario didn't get you excited for Shawn Michaels versus Vader.
They built up that Jerry Lawler versus Jake the Snake match more than this one.
Yeah.
Going into this.
Way more.
Fucking terrible. What'd Meltzer think of it?
The thoughts on this match during this time were much different.
Oh.
Dave Meltzer says this was an excellent match and gave it 4 stars.
Wow.
And the readers seemed to enjoy it as well.
Makes you wonder if they were able to see Shawn's somewhat unprofessional behavior.
Yeah. I kind of maybe think people probably just didn't know what was going on, you know?
I guess, yeah, for me, it was just what special happened in this match to make it a 4-star match. It was just there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I don't think there was anything terrible that happened, but nothing good either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this was a Raw match that just so happened to be a half hour long.
Well, and sadly, this Vader has officially peaked now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it, you know?
Yep. Great but tragic point there. And as I said, I mean, that's it. That ends our pay-per-view. So, gentlemen, we now need to ask ourselves the most important question of all. At a price of $29.95, did you get your money's worth? Joe, please, why don't you take that first?
Well, the answer to the question is no, but I will say this event was what I thought it was going to be. I was not excited going into it. I was excited about 2 matches, and they were, I mean, one disappointed, but the other one was fine. But I will say, knowing now that we're past this event, we have some really exciting stuff coming up, so I'm looking forward to that.
As far as I go, you know, I think in the end I would pay $29.95 solely to see the pallbearer turn. And that's it. I mean, you take that one thing out of this match and there's no way in hell that I buy it. But, I mean, to be able to watch that live, I'd pay it.
I went with a big fat no on whether I got my money's worth. It felt like so much time got wasted throughout this, and it's a long one. It was, I think, 2 hours and 51 minutes long, just shy of 3 hours. The worst matches were positioned in the middle so that whatever momentum they built up at the start here just got murdered by the time we got to the bigger headlining matches. And even those were full of missteps and bad timing, so I did not get my money's worth. Joe, what are the numbers that the Wrestling Observer had for us?
Well, as far as the Observer readers go, 29.1% thumbs up, 47.7% thumbs down, and the rest in the middle. The best match was voted as Shawn Michaels versus Vader by quite a few votes. The worst match, no surprise, was Jerry Lawler versus Jake Roberts. The live crowd set a state record at a $413,000 house, which was the second biggest live gate of the year for WWF behind WrestleMania.
Wow.
But the buy rate was not good. It was a 0.58, which is about $1.74 million, which sounds pretty good, but it was a huge drop from last year's buy rate of $2.37 million.
Wow.
Oh.
You know, I listened to an interview with Vader, and he said that the buy rates were low because he was having matches with Shawn at house shows, and Shawn was winning every match. So he said, those are your pay-per-view buyers, and they're not going to buy if they already know Shawn's going to win.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's something that we haven't really talked about. You know, with as much as we like to joke about Vince sucking off Shawn Michaels every chance he gets, now that you say that, and now that we hear that, did anybody ever think, and, you know, I guess maybe do keep kayfabe in mind, I guess, but did anybody ever think that Vader had a chance of winning this?
No.
Ever?
No.
Yeah.
They barely even hinted at that as a possibility in the build-up, but you know, there wasn't a build-up. So
right.
Just the fact that he didn't even get to play the monster in this match.
Yeah.
You know, clear sign.
Well, and he's in the middle of Vince forcing him to lose weight. So, I mean, that already puts him in a bad position. So Vince isn't going to give him the title.
Right.
But yeah.
All right. Well, that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on August 19th, 1996, with matches featuring Freddie Joe Floyd, Yokozuna, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.